They hate him. They absolutely hate Beerus. For some reason, Beerus is still getting downplayed, quite frankly, even post chapter 104 of the Dragon Ball Super manga, a year after the last chapter he featured in, which was chapter 103. People are still saying that since the Tournament of Power, it's actually Beerus been getting upscaled in terms of raw power, rather than him just being this strong all along. So interestingly, we know that Toyotaro is doing signings on art that he's done. I also know that he's going to be coming to Paris soon for a Japan Expo, which I might go to, so I might get the chance to meet Toyotaro himself. And he's touring. He's also touring with animators and publishers that are quite prominent in Viz. So it's interesting about what's going on. He's touring on one hand, so are we getting anything soon? Or does it mean the fact that he's touring with certain people that he's working with them whilst touring to bring us something soon? But I think this image that's on your screen right now perfectly sums up the Dragon Ball community at the moment. Ever since Daima's finished, even if you liked Daima, ever since that artwork came out of the 5 strongest mortals, or at least protagonist mortals in Universe 7, we're all waiting for the Dragon Ball Super manga to come back. We want to see what happens next, and it seems like they're getting very close to Beerus at this point, even though we've been saying this for nearly 10 arcs now, ever since Battle of Gods, because initially in the Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods movie, it was portrayed that Super Saiyan God Goku was 70% of Beerus' power. We got the whole God scale, but that was a Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods movie before Dragon Ball Super was even conceived. When Dragon Ball Super was conceived, it became obvious to anybody without an agenda that Beerus was not a 10 and Super Saiyan God Goku was a 6. Unless you use some weird inverse type of scaling, which I think is just overcomplicating the matter, to be honest. But Super Saiyan God Goku was not 70% of a full power Beerus in the Dragon Ball Super anime. In fact, we did get that tree next to castle comparison, which I really think put it far more into perspective than what anything we got from the Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods movie did. The manga has made it even more clear. I did make a video, 25 different reasons they try to warn us about Beerus' power level. But because of a further development in the anime, because the anime wasn't clear and decisive with the information regarding Beerus' power in relevance to, say, Ultra Instinct Goku from the Tournament of Power, there is a contingent of thinking in the fandom that Beerus, rather than just being this strong all along, because in the manga he's pretty much still stating that Goku needs to catch up to him to be considered a God of Destruction candidate. We know Goku doesn't want that role, but it's telling enough to tell us that Beerus is still stronger, or considers himself stronger. People believe that Beerus, since the Tournament of Power, has basically been training and getting stronger off screen. Now, it's one of those base rate fallacy type of things where you can't really argue against it, because I guess it's possible, but this is a story. This is a narrative that the manga writer is trying to advocate to us. If it was part of the story, surely we would have been told it. But there's far more evidence correlating to the fact that Beerus has just been this strong the whole damn time. But guys, as I continue, please do lend me your energy, and the best way you can do that is lending me your energy towards a massive Genki Dama that I'm going to send at the YouTube algorithm by smashing a like on the video first and foremost, and then commenting down below, even if it's just saying something along the lines of here, I'm lending you my energy. It is greatly appreciated and really does truly help a Dragon Ball channel and a Dragon Ball brother get his content out there amongst the wider Dragon Ball audiences, and I do truly appreciate all your help in lending me your energy. Thank you very much. So like I was saying, Beerus, the correlation really lies with Beerus just being this strong the whole time. The complications really come from the Dragon Ball Super anime portrayal and that continuity, simply because they overhyped Ultra Instinct and Jiren in the Tournament of Power. Obviously, with every villain, with every new transformation we get in Dragon Ball, it always gets overhyped. This isn't new to the Tournament of Power. This has happened throughout Dragon Ball with the original Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Fusion, Super Saiyan God. They all seem exponentially powerful, but as time passes, we get a clearer idea that, yes, obviously they are increasing Goku's raw power level and multiplying it by a certain degree, but the value of that multiplication probably isn't as much as we initially thought. And over time, it's become clear that Ultra Instinct isn't the multiplier over Super Saiyan Blue that many were touting it was, with people going crazy, like millions of times Super Saiyan Blue in terms of a raw power multiplier. Seriously, That was what was happening from 2018 to 2021. Of course, the anime finished after the Tournament of Power, so some people, to cope, I guess, the copium that they take is that you cut it off after the anime. You don't even consider the Broly movie or the superhero movie as continuations of the Dragon Ball Super anime. You cut it off and the story ends there, and that way you can say, well, Beerus got beaten and arm wrestled by Belmod. Belmod's not as strong as Jiren. Ultra Instinct Goku is stronger than Jiren, so therefore Beerus is weaker than Belmod, and they've already surpassed Beerus. Obviously, there's many counter arguments to all of that. Obviously, I've covered that on my channel many times, but that is a interpretation you could put forward. And once again, if we go into the realms of possibility, it's a possibility. Is it likely? In my humble opinion, not at all. Not only do I think it's disingenuous to cut the movies of Broly and Superhero off from the anime, as okay, you can say they're their own continuity. Toriyama did write them from his own pen, and they were intended to be continuations of what we saw in the anime, and they do take the anime into account despite a few inconsistencies. But even if you don't, obviously then you have to consider the holistic work surrounding the Broly movie, surrounding the superhero script and the promotional material for both movies, and they hold just as much weight as the promotional material for the Tournament of Power anime. However, in the manga, it's far more clear where Beerus' power lies. Has he got stronger though? That's a question. Has he been upscaled? Well, we got a pretty early idea in chapter 28 when Beerus entered the God of Destruction tournament and basically outlasted 10 other Gods of Destructions and was in the final 2 against Quitella. And this was despite the fact that Beerus was initially attacked by all 11 Gods of Destructions using speed blitzing, overpowering Moscow, and stated to being able to almost kill 4 other Gods of Destructions unless a barrier technique didn't block it from doing so. And of course, Belmod was not one of those final Gods of Destructions. It's really hard to put Belmod at Beerus' level in the manga, even if you separate it from what we were told in the superhero movie, which basically buries it really, given Vegeta's comments about Jiren being at their level just having better efficiency. Now I must say, I do agree there is a bit of an omission of those statements in the manga, and it could mean something, even though you could still interpret what Vegeta says to only really mean a couple of the people he mentioned, because for some of them, like Broly, efficiency doesn't really make sense in that regard. But the point that tournament makes is that the Gods of Destructions aren't all on the same level. They're actually more in a tier of power, with certain Gods of Destructions being lower in that tier, and the likes of Beerus, Quitella, possibly Champa as well, being higher up in that tier. Where Belmod lies, I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely not in the top few. And obviously the story we've gone on to hear since then, I would say supports that. But what really supports the fact that Beerus potentially hasn't really trained, here's the issue. I wouldn't say he's not necessarily trained, but there's not much of a story of Goku and Vegeta catching up to Beerus if Beerus' training methods allow him to stay that much further ahead and grow at a faster rate than Goku and Vegeta. It's basically a non-story. Is the writing team that bad? Well, that's up to you. Maybe they are doing something that's stupid, but I don't think it's likely. I do think Beerus is like the One Piece of the Dragon Ball Super story, that the overarching narrative to all of the arcs that have happened is that they will eventually catch up with Beerus, hopefully before the end of Z. But what you can link from chapter 27, which happens just before that God of Destruction tournament, is what we also hear in chapter 101 when Beerus is talking to Goku. In chapter 27, Beerus tells Vegeta that with completed Super Saiyan Blue, he is strong enough to be a God of Destruction candidate in another universe. This is embellished upon in chapter 101 when Beerus tells Goku that to become a God of Destruction candidate, he needs to either catch up to Beerus or surpass him in terms of power, supposedly. Now, this is also supported by the fact that Jump magazine stated that even Black Frieza hasn't caught up to Beerus yet. So that also corroborates with the fact that Goku states that Black Frieza is still above him with his silver-haired Ultra Instinct form post the superhero arc. So in terms of official sources from the wider franchise, it all aligns. But obviously there's been 4 arcs since the Tournament of Power, but a lot of those statements that were made about Jiren and Goku potentially being stronger than all Gods of Destructions, depending on your interpretation of a kanji to English translation, they didn't really occur for the manga itself, at least not at a high consistency or high qualitative evidence level. Of course, they have grown in power, not just base power, but in terms of stacking transformations. But as time has gone on, whilst Ultra Instinct is certainly a lot stronger than Blue, it's not the ridiculous thousands of times or millions of times stronger that we thought it was. It's definitely something much more modest whilst we don't have the official multiplier. And obviously, I know it's not just a multiplier of raw power, because some people always make these comments down in my comment section like I'm trying to suggest it is. It's a package transformation. I've said this multiple times. It comes with hacks abilities, speed hacks, dodge hacks, critical hits, exploitations of openings. It's a great transformation that goes beyond just a traditional raw power up. And when you think about it, that's what Beerus was telling us way back in that fight against Complete Super Saiyan Blue. It will take more than just a power up to beat him. Beerus has more than just raw power, and whilst I do believe they're getting close to that now, it's also been suggested they're getting close to that in the wider franchise. Beerus will still have a whole arsenal of techniques and abilities that we potentially haven't seen yet. But ultimately, what the comments Beerus makes to Goku about surpassing to become a god of destruction also correlates to is that comment he made to Vegeta all that time ago, that Vegeta with complete Super Saiyan Blue could be a god of destruction candidate in another universe. When we get to the Tournament of Power, complete Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta is on par with Toppo, who is the god of destruction candidate of Universe 11. Obviously, Jiren turned that role down, and if it's based on their power level being at the same level of the God of Destruction to become the God of Destruction candidate, then obviously at that point Vegeta's nowhere near Beerus, and he cannot be a candidate for Universe 7, because even by Beerus's words, and you could call it hyperbole if you want, but it will take him millions of years to even get close to Beerus's level. So that suggests that Beerus is vastly stronger than Gods of Destructions in other universes, which you could argue was also shown in that God of Destruction exposition match. So I think it's highly probable that Beerus has just been this strong all along. He kind of wants Goku and Vegeta to catch up to him. I'm not saying he doesn't train, but does he get gains as fast as Goku and Vegeta? Because that's their thing as Saiyans. Obviously there's some others that get fast gains, that they're supposed to be catching Beerus up at a very fast rate, and eventually they'll become his rival as per the Oracle Fish. And obviously I know someone's going to bring up, well, Beerus states that he's limitless, therefore he has limitless power. Well, limitless isn't the same as having an infinite reserve of power. Beerus has a base level of power if he is to get to full power. We saw this in that God of Destruction, as well as the fact that we know there's other beings that are stronger than him. Just like Vegeta's Ultra Ego, he has a base rate which he can get to, but the more he thinks about destruction, the stronger he can get. So he can get stronger in battle. That is one of the hacks that comes with Ultra Ego, I guess, or whatever the Hakai ability is for a God of Destruction like Beerus. But it seems that Beerus is still getting downplayed, and this upscaling business seems like cope to get over the fact that people just simply got it wrong way back in the Tournament of Power. Their interpretation of the events were wrong. Anyway, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. I look forward to reading what you've got to say about this matter. Obviously, the next arc is a big one, and I think we'll get some challenges to Beerus, potentially Black Frieza, in the next arc. Drop your thoughts down below, smash a like on the video, lend me your energy against this algorithm, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, Ad Astra.